There is a strange feeling that some people describe after watching certain old films. A scene appears, a familiar one, something they have seen on the news, something that happened in the real world. But the film was made years earlier, sometimes decades earlier. A virus spreading across the globe, a city under constant surveillance, a device that looks like a smartphone, drawn before smartphones existed, a skyline shown in a cartoon, with a tower that would later collapse in real life, a political figure mentioned by name in a comedy show, years before they ever held office. Coincidence is a simple word, a useful word, a word that closes conversations quickly. But some patterns are difficult to dismiss. Some viewers stop the film. They rewind the scene. They watch it again and again. They show it to friends. They show it to family. They post it online. And then they ask a question that has no comfortable answer. How did the screenwriter know? There is a theory that attempts to explain this. It does not come from universities. It does not come from official research. It does not appear in academic journals. It comes from people sitting in front of screens, noticing things they were not supposed to notice. It is called predictive programming. And once you hear about it, it becomes very difficult to watch films the same way again. Every old movie becomes a question. Every cartoon becomes a clue. Every science fiction film becomes a possible warning. Some people watch this content for entertainment. Some watch it for nostalgia. And some watch it now with a different kind of attention, searching for something. They are not always sure what they are searching for. But they keep watching because the patterns keep appearing, and the patterns refuse to be ignored. Before exploring the theory, it helps to look at what is verifiable. Fiction has always borrowed from reality. Writers read newspapers. Screenwriters consult experts.
Studios hire scientific advisors, military consultants, technology researchers, futurists, sociologists, and psychologists. This is documented. This is normal. This is part of the industry. When a film about space travel is produced, NASA engineers are sometimes consulted. When a film about hacking is produced, real cybersecurity professionals are often involved. When a film about a pandemic is produced, epidemiologists are brought in to make the story feel realistic. When a film about war is produced, military veterans review the script. When a film about artificial intelligence is produced, computer scientists explain what is theoretically possible. This is not a secret. It is standard practice. It is even advertised in promotional materials. It is also a fact that science fiction has on many occasions described technologies that did not yet exist. Submarines were imagined before they were built.
Space travel was described in detail more than a century before the first rocket left Earth. Video calls appeared in fiction long before the first webcam. Tablets, voice assistants, and wireless earpieces appeared in films long before they reached consumers. Self-driving cars were depicted decades before they appeared on real roads. These predictions are well known. They are often celebrated. Authors like Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Isaac Asimov,
and Arthur C. Clarke are praised for them. It is also true that some films, books, and television shows have depicted events that strongly resemble real events that occurred later. A pandemic film released years before a real pandemic. A novel describing a ship sinking, written before a similar ship sank. A cartoon scene resembling a political moment that would happen years afterward. A spy film describing surveillance technology that was officially confirmed only decades later. These cases exist. They are documented. They can be verified.
It is also a documented fact that intelligence agencies in several countries have worked with film studios. Some of this cooperation is publicly acknowledged. Scripts have been reviewed. Locations have been provided. Technical advisors have been assigned. The reasons given are usually practical. Accuracy, recruitment, public image. But the cooperation itself is real. It is not theory. It is part of the public record. What remains uncertain is what all of this means. Some call the patterns coincidences. Some call them educated guesses. Some call them shared cultural intuition. Some call them something else. The facts end here. Beyond this point, interpretation begins. And interpretation, in this subject, has produced some of the most persistent theories of the modern age. This is where the discomfort begins. Because while individual coincidences can be explained, the number of them is what makes some people pause. Consider the patterns that have been pointed out over the years.
A long-running animated series, broadcast for decades, produces thousands of short scenes. Statistically, some of those scenes will eventually resemble real events. That is mathematically expected. But certain scenes resemble real events with unusual precision. A specific person becoming a political leader predicted years in advance. A specific technology appearing on screen before it appeared in stores. A specific disaster depicted in a specific city in a specific way before it happened. A specific health crisis mentioned in a specific country before it spread. Each example, isolated, can be dismissed. Together, they form a pattern. Then there are the films about pandemics. Some of them showed empty streets. Some of them showed hospitals overwhelmed. Some of them showed misinformation spreading faster than the virus itself. Some of them showed governments struggling to coordinate a response. Some of them showed people fighting over basic supplies. Some of them showed funerals without mourners. Years later, viewers around the world watched these same images on the news. Then there are the films about surveillance. Films from the 1990s described a world where every device listens, where every search is recorded, where personal data is harvested and sold, where private companies know more about citizens than governments do. At the time, these stories were called paranoid. Today, they are called accurate. Then there are the films about simulated reality, stories about a world that is not real, a world built on code, a world where the people inside cannot tell the difference between reality and illusion. Decades later, serious scientists, philosophers, and technology figures began discussing the simulation hypothesis as a legitimate idea. University lectures were given, books were written, billionaires invested in research about it. Then there are the films about artificial intelligence, stories about machines that learn, machines that talk, machines that imitate emotion, machines that replace human workers, machines that influence how people think. At the time, these stories were science fiction. Today, conversations with artificial intelligence are part of daily life. Then there are smaller anomalies.
the ones that do not fit any major pattern but still feel uncomfortable. A specific brand name appearing in a film before the company existed. A specific event date shown briefly on a calendar that later matched a real event. A piece of dialogue describing a future leader's habits with strange accuracy. A background newspaper headline that would, years later, appear almost word for word. Each of these examples on its own can be explained, but the pattern is what some people cannot ignore. The same themes, the same images, the same warnings, repeated across decades, across studios, across continents, across languages, and then, eventually, appearing in reality. It is enough to make even cautious viewers stop and wonder. This is where the theory of predictive programming enters. The term is not academic. It does not appear in mainstream psychology textbooks. It is most often associated with media analysis and certain online communities. According to those who promote the idea, predictive programming works in a specific way. It is often suggested that fiction introduces ideas before they happen in reality. It is often suggested that audiences become emotionally familiar with these ideas through entertainment. It is often suggested that when similar events occur in the real world, the public reacts with less shock and less resistance. The theory does not claim that films cause future events. It claims something more subtle. It claims that films prepare people to accept them. This idea has several versions. The mildest version suggests that media simply reflects the direction society is heading. In this version, there is no conspiracy. There is only awareness. Writers see where the world is going, and they write about it. Audiences see the films, and they slowly adjust to the future before it arrives. This version is almost uncontroversial. It is close to what cultural studies professors discuss in classrooms. A stronger version suggests that media is used, intentionally or unintentionally, to soften public reactions. In this version, governments, corporations, and powerful institutions benefit when the public is already familiar with certain ideas. A surveillance state is easier to introduce when people have already seen it on screen. A new technology is easier to sell when audiences have already imagined using it. This version is more controversial, but it does not require any single hidden hand. The strongest version is the one most often associated with conspiracy communities. In this version, certain individuals or groups deliberately insert future events, technologies, or social changes into entertainment.
The purpose is to condition the public, to reduce resistance, to normalize what is coming, to make the unfamiliar feel inevitable. There is no confirmed evidence for this strongest version, no leaked documents, no verified insiders, no proven mechanism. But the theory persists. Supporters of the theory point to several examples that are widely discussed online. There is the long-running animated series mentioned earlier. Some people believe its writers have access to information the public does not have. Others believe the show simply has so many episodes that some predictions are statistically inevitable. There is no confirmed evidence supporting the first interpretation. There is the science fiction film about a simulated world. Some people believe it was meant to introduce a concept that would later be quietly accepted as possible.
Others believe it was simply a creative philosophical exercise, inspired by older ideas. Ideas found in ancient philosophy, religious texts, and academic papers. There is the pandemic film, released years before the global outbreak.
Some people believe it was a form of preparation. Others believe it was the natural result of consulting with epidemiologists who had been warning about pandemics for decades. There is the dystopian anthology series about technology. Some people believe it shows what is being planned. Others believe it shows what is already developing in laboratories around the world, simply pushed slightly further for dramatic effect. There are the spy films from the Cold War era. Some people believe they revealed surveillance technologies that already existed but were classified. Others believe writers simply imagined logical extensions of known technology. In each case, two interpretations exist. One leans toward coincidence. One leans toward something deliberate.
The theory of predictive programming sits in the space between them, and that space is uncomfortable because it cannot be fully proven, and it cannot be fully dismissed. There are rational explanations for almost every example. The first is pattern recognition. The human brain is extraordinarily skilled at finding patterns. It evolved this way for survival. A rustling bush could mean a predator. A change in the sky could mean a storm. A footprint in the soil could mean another human nearby. Recognizing patterns saved lives. But the same skill that helped early humans survive also causes modern humans to see patterns where none exist. This is called apophenia, and it is well documented in psychology. When a person watches a film and later sees something similar in the news, the brain connects the two events. It feels meaningful. It feels significant. It feels like discovery. But for every hit, there are thousands of misses. Films that predicted nothing.
Scenes that resembled no real event. Stories that simply faded from memory. Predictions that turned out to be completely wrong. People remember the matches. People forget the rest. This is called confirmation bias. It affects everyone. It cannot be turned off through willpower alone. The second explanation is extrapolation. Writers do not invent the future from nothing. They observe the present and push it forward. If smartphones exist, writers imagine smartphones with more features. If surveillance exists, writers imagine more surveillance. If pandemics have happened before, writers imagine pandemics happening again. If artificial intelligence is being developed, writers imagine it becoming more advanced. Scientists have warned about global pandemics for decades. Engineers have predicted artificial intelligence for nearly a century. Sociologists have described the rise of mass surveillance since the 1960s. Climate researchers have predicted environmental disasters for generations.
Writers read these warnings. Then they turn them into stories. When the stories come true, it can feel like prediction. But often, it is simply extrapolation made visual. The third explanation is statistical inevitability. If thousands of films are produced every year, and each one contains hundreds of scenes, the total number of fictional images created is enormous. Some of those images will, by chance alone, resemble future events. This is not mysticism. This is mathematics. A long-running animated show with decades of episodes will, statistically, contain at least some scenes that resemble future news. The surprising thing would be if it did not. The fourth explanation is shared cultural anxiety. Writers, audiences, and real-world decision-makers all live in the same world. They share the same fears. They share the same hopes. They share the same warnings from scientists and analysts. So when fiction reflects reality, it may not be because fiction shaped reality.
It may be because both are shaped by the same underlying conditions. A culture worried about pandemics produces films about pandemics. That same culture, with the same risks, eventually experiences a pandemic. The connection is real. But the cause is shared environment, not hidden knowledge. The fifth explanation is the influence of fiction on reality. Sometimes fiction does shape the future, but in a different way than the theory of predictive programming suggests. Engineers who watched science fiction as children grow up to design real technology inspired by voice assistants in many other devices were directly inspired by fictional ones. In these cases, fiction did influence the future, but it did so through inspiration, not through prediction. Reality caught up to fiction because real people decided to build what they had seen on screen. The sixth explanation is selective memory in popular culture.
When a film accurately predicts something, it becomes famous. Articles are written, videos are made, social media posts spread. When a film fails to predict anything, no one notices. There are no articles celebrating wrong predictions. There are no viral posts about ordinary scenes that did not come true. This creates a distorted impression. It makes prediction look more common than it is. These explanations are reasonable. They are grounded. They are supported by research in psychology, statistics, and media studies. And yet, for many people, they do not fully resolve the discomfort. Because the explanations describe how patterns can appear by chance, but they do not eliminate the patterns. The patterns are still there, and the mind keeps returning to them. Even with rational explanations, the theory of predictive programming continues to spread. There are reasons for this. The first is psychological. Humans struggle to accept randomness. A coincidence feels meaningful. A pattern feels intentional. When something unsettling happens, the mind searches for an explanation. "It was random" rarely satisfies. "Someone new" feels more complete, even when it is unproven. The need for meaning is older than science. It is older than written language. It may be older than civilization itself. It does not disappear simply because someone reads a study. The second reason is historical. There have been moments in recorded history when governments, corporations, and institutions did hide information. There have been propaganda campaigns. There have been classified programs revealed only decades later. There have been studies on public perception conducted without the public's knowledge. There have been declassified documents showing that real surveillance, real psychological research, and real media influence operations did exist. These are documented facts. They are not theories. So when someone suggests that media might be used to influence perception, the idea does not sound impossible. It sounds like something that has happened before, in different forms, in different countries, across different decades. This historical context gives the theory of predictive programming a foundation, even when specific claims cannot be proven. The argument is not, "This has been confirmed." The argument is, "Something like this has happened before." That argument is harder to dismiss. The third reason is the experience of recognition. When a person watches an old film and sees something that resembles a recent event, the feeling is difficult to describe. It is not pure logic. It is not pure emotion. It is something in between. The mind cannot dismiss it easily. The body sometimes reacts before the thought is finished. A small chill, a pause in breathing, a sense that something is not quite right. This feeling is powerful, and no statistical explanation can fully erase it.
A person can read every research paper on apophenia. They can understand confirmation bias completely, and they can still feel the chill when an old cartoon shows something that happened last week. Knowledge does not always defeat sensation. The fourth reason is the speed of modern change. Technologies once considered science fiction are now part of daily life. Artificial intelligence speaks in human voices. Cameras watch public spaces in nearly every city. Personal data is collected, analyzed, and sold to advertisers. Reality itself can be edited through digital tools. Faces can be replaced in videos. Voices can be cloned from a few seconds of audio. The line between fiction and reality is thinner than it has ever been. In a world where the impossible becomes possible every year, the idea that fiction might somehow be connected to the future does not feel as absurd as it once did. When reality already feels strange, theories about reality also feel less strange.
The fifth reason is human nature. People want to believe that the world has hidden meaning. They want to believe that someone, somewhere, knows what is coming. They want to believe that even chaos has a structure. A theory that suggests the future is being revealed in advance, even through entertainment, offers something that randomness does not. It offers a sense that the world is not entirely out of control. It offers a feeling that there are patterns to be found. It offers a story. And humans are creatures that need stories, even unsettling stories, even uncomfortable ones. A frightening explanation often feels better than no explanation at all. The sixth reason is distrust. Distrust in institutions has grown in many countries. Distrust in media, distrust in governments, distrust in science, distrust in major corporations. When trust decreases, alternative explanations rise. In a world where official sources are doubted, unofficial theories grow.
In a world where transparency is questioned, hidden agendas are assumed. In a world where the past has revealed lies, the present is approached with suspicion. The theory of predictive programming grows in this environment, not because it has been proven, but because the environment makes proof feel less important than possibility. The seventh reason is the internet itself. Online platforms reward content that creates emotion, surprise, fear, wonder, suspicion. Videos comparing old films to recent news perform well. They are shared. They are commented on. They are remembered. Algorithms learn that this kind of content holds attention, and so more of it is recommended. This does not mean the patterns are fake. It means the patterns are amplified. Every match becomes visible. Every miss disappears into the silence of unwatched content. The result is a digital world where coincidence looks like conspiracy, simply because coincidence is what gets shown.
So what should one think when watching an old film and seeing the future inside it? Is it coincidence? Possibly. The mathematics of media production make some matches inevitable. Is it extrapolation? Possibly. Writers have always imagined where the present might lead. Is it pattern recognition? Possibly. The brain finds meaning even in noise. Is it shared cultural anxiety? Possibly. Fiction and reality grow from the same soil. Is it inspiration shaping invention? Possibly. Sometimes the future imitates the screen, because the screen taught the future how to look. Is it something else? There is no confirmed evidence for any deeper explanation. No verified document. No proven mechanism. No accepted authority that supports the stronger versions of the theory. But the patterns continue to appear. As seen from a cartoon, decades old, resembling a recent headline. A film about a virus, released before a virus that looked the same.
A story about surveillance, written before surveillance became invisible.
a film about a simulated world, released before scientists began asking whether reality might be one. A piece of dialogue, spoken on screen years ago, repeated almost exactly in real life. Each example on its own has an explanation. The discomfort comes from the accumulation. The discomfort comes from the silence between the matches, when the mind asks a question and the world does not answer. Why do certain themes appear repeatedly across different films, different studios, different decades? Why do some fictional scenes look almost identical to real events that occur years later? Are creators predicting the future? Are they preparing audiences for it? Are they being inspired by the same warnings that real-world decision-makers receive? Or are audiences simply finding meaning in the noise of an enormous, chaotic, image-saturated world? There is no final answer. There may never be a final answer.
Because the question is not really about films. The question is about how humans understand time, meaning, and the strange feeling that the world is following a script written somewhere out of sight. Perhaps the next time a film is watched, nothing unusual will happen. The story will end, the screen will go dark, life will continue. Or perhaps, months later, something on the news will look familiar. A scene already witnessed, a moment already imagined, a warning that was hidden inside entertainment, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. Maybe it is coincidence, maybe it is imagination, maybe it is the mind doing what minds always do, searching for meaning where none was placed. Maybe the films are just films, or maybe
The next story, watched on a screen, is not entirely fiction. Maybe somewhere, in a frame that will be paused years from now, the future is already waiting. Written into the background, spoken in a forgotten line, hidden in plain sight. And the only way to know is to wait, to watch, and to remember what was seen when the moment finally arrives.